Stan Gibilisco here with a little more information and history of this 22-foot capacitively loaded 20-meter monoband ground plane antenna. And when I say history, well, you've seen a couple of other videos about this, the capacitive loading section, which is, it's kind of hard to see this, but that's the feed point, and the coaxial cable, which is RG8X, runs right along underneath the deck. There it is. It's this that gray cable. It runs through a hole and into the woodshed, where it comes right in up there, goes down behind that ICOM AH4 tuner, which is currently not in use for reasons that I'll explain later, down to a PL259 connector on the end, which I normally leave disconnected from this part of the feed line, which then goes in to the radio in the nerd cave. That's the arrangement that I have now, and it's a monobander. But you may have noticed something else, and that is this heavy-duty 1 1/4 inch copper tubing that runs roughly the same route and then terminates right now in non-use. It actually, I had to drill this hole through this beam with a hand drill. You talk about taking a little while. There's the end of it, and I sealed her up. Now I ran a wire through that length of copper tubing. It was a number 10 wire, number 10 solid copper wire, and just left air as the dielectric inside. Now you're beginning to get the idea that that might form a coaxial cable with a kind of an unknown characteristic impedance, probably around 100 ohms. Sealed up the end over here with silicone stuff that would last pretty much forever and ever. Back in the woodshed we go. It goes through the wall and ends right there in disuse. So this whole about roughly 10-foot length of extremely high grade hard line is what it amounts to, is not being used at the present time. Neither is the ICOM AH4, because an electromagnetic pulse from a nearby lightning strike presumably has demised this little bugger. I'm not sure how or where that pulse came from. There's the power cord, or the signal control cord for that AH4, which runs to the ICOM IC746 radio. So I had an automatic antenna tuner in the past here, and that tuner then went through this length of hard line to the antenna. I had installed one radial for each band from 6 meters all the way down to 40 meters, running out from the base of that antenna, all under the deck and some kind of curling around the house. 2 of them for 20 meters, otherwise I believe I had just one for all of the other bands. So it was a ground plane of sorts. It was 28 feet high at that time, and it was fed through the tuner and this section of hardline. Now you're going to get the idea. Well, that hardline probably had a pretty high SWR on it on most bands, and the answer to that would be, of course it would. It is a tuned feeder. Now you've heard of tuned feeders made out of ladder line, balanced ladder line. But have you ever heard of a tuned feeder made out of air dielectric coaxial line? Well, now you have. And so that, my fellow ham radio operators, was the design that I used, and it worked very well all the way from 6 meters down through the 10 megahertz band. On 40 meters not so much, but it was still pretty good. I could actually drive power into it on 80 meters and made a few contacts. But of course it's not a very efficient antenna on that band if it's only 28 feet high. So with that, I will conclude this little demonstration, but I don't see any reason why the concept of tuned feeders, pretty much ignoring the standing wave ratio, can't apply just as well to an unbalanced line as it can to a balanced line. As long as the dielectric is air, the loss is going to be extremely low. You really don't have to worry about all the numbers. You can just connect up the automatic antenna tuner, wire the thing up, as long as that feed line isn't too long or the frequency isn't too high, you're going to have a tuned ground plane antenna. And I found it to be a wonderful antenna. I just didn't want to go buy another ICOM AH4 and have the electromagnetic pulse, probably on this power control cable, fry another one of those things. That's one of the shortcomings, in my opinion, of these electronic antenna tuners, is the components just simply cannot withstand the electromagnetic pulses that the good old-fashioned manual tuners with those great big coils and capacitors could stand. Anyhow, this is W1 GV Whiskey 1 Golf Victor, signing off from the woodshed, where I did not, after all, need to use the flashlight to help with the illumination.